Okay, so I'm making this video as my testimony. As a friend of mine said, a good friend of mine named Mac McNeil, after I told him this story one night at the bowling alley, he told me it was my testimony. Which basically, I feel like I should share this. For those of you who don't know me and don't know the story, now my oldest friends and closest friends, they've heard this. But this is the story of what happened on the night of October 12th, 2007. Okay? So, a little backstory. Tina Marr was my fiance for 9 years. We had 3 kids together, Lacey, Samantha, and Holly. I met Tina when she was 24 and I was 27, and Lacey and Samantha were 7 and 4. Holly wasn't thought of yet. And so we had Holly together. Over the years, Tina's asthma got worse and worse. She would go to the emergency room on a regular basis. Scared me to death every time. She became disabled from asthma. She was basically stuck in the house, couldn't leave because her allergies triggered her asthma, so she was kind of homebound. And towards the end, medications, all the different medications were just killing her slowly, really. But the night before this happened, she had an asthma attack and went to the hospital. A friend of ours named Danica, good friend, had offered to go with her to give me a break because I had to work the next day. I really appreciated that. So Danica went with her. She got her albuterol, her steroids, and she was good and came back home. Well, I worked second shift and I was up for a while, and I went to bed late. So the Thursday before was the 11th. We're talking about the morning of the 12th. I'm asleep. It's probably 3 or 4 in the morning, something like that. Holly comes running in, who is 4 years old, crying and screaming. Woke me up out of a dead sleep. I jump up. I come out from our bedroom into the hallway, looking into the living room where Tina stayed most of the time. And Tina was at her desk in the living room, giving herself an albuterol treatment and trying desperately to breathe, just struggling. She was turned like this. Sometimes she would turn like that in the chair to help her breathe. It was to raise her arms up. You raise your arms up, supposed to open your lungs up, help you breathe. She was doing that and just gasping for breath, struggling. So I walk in and I'm like, holy, this is bad. It's like one of the worst times I've ever seen her have an asthma attack. And she's just doing her inhaler, her albuterol treatment, which is a nebulizer that feeds the albuterol to you. She's doing that. She can't talk. She can't waste any breath on talk. So I'm like, crap. I call 911. I tell them what's going on to come get her. And shortly after I get off the phone with them, she took the nebulizer out of her mouth. She said, "I love you," and she started doing it again. And she'd never acted like this. I said, "I love you too. Why would you say that?" It was like, what's going on? What? I mean, why would you take a moment of that breath to say that? And by this time, the 2 oldest girls are up. They're right there, just helpless, What can you do? I told Lacey, who was the middle child, 13 years old at the time, to take Holly into the bedroom because they didn't need to be there for that. So Samantha and me stayed with Tina. Samantha ran across the street to get the neighbors, see if they could help. And while she was gone, Tina said, "I'm going to pass out." I said, okay. So I walked over to her and I helped her off the chair. And I laid her on the ground. And she quit breathing. At this point, I freak out. I call 911. While I'm on the phone with them, they're walking me through CPR. So I start CPR on Tina. And Samantha walks back in and freaks out. Completely freaks out. And by this time, Colin and AJ had come across the street. And we're helpless, you know. I'm doing CPR, so they can't help at this point. Samantha gets back on 911, or calls 911, gets back on the phone and says, just starts screaming at him, freaking out. Like, tell him to get here now. And I'm doing CPR and she's not breathing on her own. Alright? So, you know, the ambulance gets there, they take over CPR, they take her out and put her in the ambulance, and I get in the van to follow. Just me. And I'm thinking, oh God, please, you know, just please let her be okay. You know, I'm following the ambulance to the hospital. And at this point, I still don't think it's like, I mean, it's bad. It's the worst thing ever. Worst one so far, but I don't really think it's going to be the end or anything crazy like that. You know, it doesn't cross your mind in that moment. You pray and hope. You can't conceive it, you know. I get to the hospital, get to the waiting room, and a male nurse comes and gets me. And he's walking me back to the room that she's in. And he's saying some stuff, and it's kind of sinking in what he's trying to tell me. I said, please don't tell me what I think you're telling me, you know. So, we get to the room, me and this male nurse, and they open the curtains to the emergency room she was in, and every doctor and nurse that had pretty much ever helped her work, you know, just everybody that knew her from being at that emergency room so many times over the years was there, and they were just standing around her. And he said, one of the doctors said, if you have anything you'd like to say, now's the time to say it. About that time, my mom and dad got there, because I'd called them. So he said, if you have anything that you want to say, there's a slight heartbeat. We've done all we can do, but she's gone too long without breathing on her own, and there's nothing else we can do. And so I pulled up a chair and pulled up next to her, and I held her hand and I said, you can't go anywhere, Tina. That baby's gonna miss you. That's all I knew to say. I was hoping she'd come back, but she was gone. You don't know what that's like until you've been through it. I had to call all her relatives. I called her mom. I called everybody. Me, personally. And told them. And it broke my heart every single time I heard the crying on the other end of the line. Her mom screamed. But, you know, I felt like I needed to tell this story. This story needed to be told for people that didn't hear it, people that can get something from it. It's been 13 years and it's still one of the hardest days of my life every year. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about her, because not so much for me anymore, but for my kids not having their mom. I wish Holly could know what a mom is like. She doesn't know. I mean, she has Sammy, she's got Lacey, she's got Danica, and Laura, but she just doesn't know. That's something you can't give your child. All I can give her is my love. That's all I do. And Samantha and Lacey, they turned out amazing. I'm so very proud of them. So if anybody gets anything from this, just know that even going through something as terrible as that, and you feel like it's the end of the world, it's not. And I thought it was, but I knew I had to stick around for those kids, and I did. And I'm glad I did, because they still need me. They'll always need me. And I'll be here as long as I can. But don't ever think that what you're going through is something that nobody else knows anything about. Because there's people out there that know. People out there that can feel your pain. I promise you. I love you guys. Thank you.